everyone, Dark Magician of Team Sorcerers here, and welcome back to What If Wednesday. And we're doing another one of my Robot Wars ones. Don't worry, Joseph Barfield, I haven't forgotten about your other requests. But as you can probably tell, I'm alternating still. So this one is something I've thought about for a while. What if Warhog beat Napalm? Because obviously they got pitted against each other in the first round of Heat E in Series 5 for some reason, and I honestly thought Warhog would win, because it's a body spinner, and just spinners are very destructive, and Napalm wouldn't stand a chance. But for some reason the spinner wasn't working, and Napalm won on a judge's decision. So this brings about the whole point of the video. So what if the spinner was working? Well, naturally Napalm would get trashed. I mean, no offence, but it would get absolutely trashed, and just left in absolute bits and pieces. So yeah, an easy win for Warhog. And then Warhog would get pitted against Wild Thing. Now, if Wild Thing was able to win, then nothing changes and the timeline plays out the same way. But I feel like Warhog could beat Wild Thing. Wild Thing would take an absolute beating again. I mean, I don't even know how it managed the big trouble and strife, but yeah, the sides would be damaged, the wheels would be damaged, and it would be wobbling and hobbling. Maybe a wheel would even come off, and either way, Wild Thing would be eliminated here, which would be a major surprise. And yeah, the 9th seed is out, and then Warhog would go up against Prize Fighter Mach 2, and I don't think Prize Fighter will have much luck either. I mean, it wouldn't be able to flip Warhog over, and Warhog would just damage the sides, and again, obviously this is assuming the weapon is fully working, I might add. But I mean, naturally, if it isn't, it does change things, but I don't want this to be lazy writing, Obviously, if it's not, then Prize Fighter would go on to the semi-finals, and then get beaten by Chaos 2, and then S3, and probably wouldn't return for the 6-4s, but yeah. But otherwise, assuming the weapon is working, Warhog defeats Prize Fighter and goes through to the semi-finals, and then would go on to fight Chaos 2. It's hard to say how this would go. It depends how fast Warhog could start spinning. Chaos 2 would probably have to charge straight towards Warhog before it can spin up and flip it over. But Chaos 2 is pretty quick and easily controlled, so I feel like Chaos 2 would probably be able to get to Warhog quite quickly. I mean, Warhog doesn't seem to move very fast anyway, so yeah, I think Chaos 2 would be able to get to Warhog quite quickly and flip it over before any serious damage is done. So yeah, Warhog is flipped over and gets counted out, then gets put in the loser's melee with S3 and spawn again. Now, this would be a tricky one. I mean, maybe Spawn again would get to Warhog quite quickly, but I mean, if Warhog was just fighting S3, I reckon it would have a good chance against S3, but I would imagine Spawn again would also be able to get to Warhog quite quickly, and then just flip it over, and that would be that. But then S3 would just end up laying into a Spawn again. I mean, just 2 hits from S3's disc would just completely knocked out Spawn again and immobilised it and had it counted out. So that's more likely how that particular fight would go. So then with that, S3 gets back in and the rest of the series plays out the same way. Now, one big difference here, obviously, Warhog made it to the semi-finals and gets seeded over Wild Thing. So then what would have to happen is Wild Thing's battle and Warhog's battle would have to swap places. So now Wild Thing, Vader, Stag, and who else was in that fight? UFO would be in Dominator 2's heat. And then Warhog, Smidsy, Commangetorix, and St. Agro would be in Agrobot's heat. As for who'd be seeded, yeah, naturally the top 7 would be exactly the same. Actually, the top 8. But I would think Spawn again would move up and be seeded 9th, and Warhog would be 10th. And then, yeah, Stinger and Tornado would stay the same at 11th and 12th. So that would be that. So yeah, the first 4 heats, literally nothing changes. But Heat E this time is Spawn again's heat, and Spawn again wins that. Then for Heat F, nothing changes, same with G. And now we've got Warhog's heat. So Battle 1, we'd have Warhog, Smidsy, Commangetorix, and St. Agro fight each other, and that actually ends up playing the exact same way, with Smidsy and Commangetorix getting through, and a seed is eliminated already. That's the only time that happens in the series, so pretty big shock there. Meanwhile, in the other fight, Agrobot 3 and 259 would defeat Infinity and Infernal Contraption. So now it would be a case of who would fight whom. Yeah, this would be a tricky one to work out. So if 259 fought Smidsy and Commangetorix for Agrobot, here's how it would go. I would imagine that 259 would probably beat Smidsy. I mean, there is a chance Smidsy could probably lift up 259, but it's hard to say for sure. But I would think 259 would be able to just keep hitting Smidsy at the side, maybe catch one of the jaws, maybe even rip one of the jaws off. Yeah, that would be my best guess. just because I'm not 100% sure if Smidzy would be able to get the jaws under 259. Because obviously there's side skirts and there's a skirt at the back, so the only way this could happen is Smidzy attacked head on, but yeah, that would be tricky to do. And if Common Getorix fought Agrabot, I'm not sure Agrabot would be able to do much to Common Getorix. I mean, Common Getorix would get hits with the axe and use the lifter to flip Agrabot over a few times, so I think Common Getorix would win this one, and would face 259 in the heat final, and I anticipate that 259 would more than likely trash Common Getorix, which means that 259 would be the heat winner. Now, if 259 fought Common Getorix and Smidzy fought Agrabot, I don't see much changing. Again, 259 would probably trash Agrabot, and also the fight between Agrabot 3 and Smidzy would be a rematch from the Second Wars, and ironically they fought each other at this stage as well, but I don't think Agrabot would have much luck here either. And then Smidzy would get beaten by 259 in the heat final. Either way, I think 259 would win this one, although maybe there is a chance Smidzy would win this, but I can come back to this for the sake of argument. So that, and then the remaining 4 heats would just play out the same way. Oh, actually, no, not quite. Sorry. So Heat I would play out the same way, because I forgot Wild Thing was in Dominator 2's heat, so yeah. So Heat J, Dominator 2 and Hydra get through their fight, and in the other fight, Wild Thing and Vader go through, and then Vader would face Dominator 2, while Wild Thing would take on Hydra. But I don't see Wild Thing beating Hydra. I mean, maybe the disc might do a bit of damage, but Wild Thing would just get flipped over and over a few times, and I imagine Hydra would win on a judge's decision. As for Vader against Dominator 2, it's hard to say. I'm not sure the disc would do that much damage. But then again, I would imagine this would be a similar case to if Dominator 2 was fighting S3 or Pussycat. I don't think the axe would be able to get through the polycarbonate shell. It's actually quite hard to damage with an axe. So, I don't know, I think based on control and more aggression, Vader would actually beat Dominator 2, which would be a surprise, and then Vader and Hydra would face off in the heat final. I think Hydra would be able to win just by simply flipping Vader over, and that would be that. And then the other fights would play out the same way. So yeah, for semi-final 1, yeah, Razor and Spawn again would end up fighting again, whereas Firestorm would still fight 13 Black and S3 would still fight Danzon Kier. So those last 2 fights play out the same way, and yeah, Razor easily beats Spawn again, especially because of the interference problems. But then Spawn again has to fight Danzon Kier and 13 Black. Now naturally 13 Black would still end up upside down, and with Spawn again still having problems, times it's easy pickings for Danton Kier, and Danton Kier gets back in, and then the rest of that semi-final plays out the same way, with Razor beating Danton Kier and Firestorm 4 beating S3 and going through to the grand final. Now, the other semi-final, we've now got 3 unseeded robots here, and 3 seeded ones. So, I guess the seeds should be kept separate here, but just to keep things simple, I wanted to match the timeline. Hey honey, what's up?
Nothing. Hey.
Hey.
Nothing. Back is soaking wet.
Oh god.
And there's cuddle. Working.
I guess to keep it simple, Hypnodisc would still fight Tornado and lose, but now this means that Bigger Brother would fight Hydra and Terahertz would fight 259. And Bigger Brother would be able to defeat Hydra and flip it over, and because of the shape, Hydra can't really self-rise despite having a lifting arm. As for Terahertz and 259, well, that's a tough one. I mean, Terahertz would have to try and avoid that early celebration where the axe makes it dance, although if that happens, 259 could probably strike Terahertz. Whether it would hit the axe, I don't know. It's hard to anticipate. I don't know if 259 would be able to get a direct hit in on Terahertz, but I would think that Terahertz would be able to get a good hit and just hit the disc side on, or chop the belt off. I feel like that's something that could happen. Naturally, Terahertz would have to be very careful. Like maybe it could get the axe between the gap where the disc and the thing that holds it together is. I feel like at best guess Terahertz would come out on top here. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but again, that's all this series comes down to. It's best guess. So then the losers melee would be Hypnodisc, Hydra, and 259. And Hypnodisc would be able to get some good damaging on Hydra, I would think. And it would get a hit from 259 as well. Now I don't know if 259 would be able to catch up with Hypnodisc and get a good hit. Then again, it might be hard for Hypnodisc to get a direct hit as well, but there is a chance, depending on how badly damaged 259 was by Terahertz, you more likely come out on top here. I mean, I imagine one hit from 259's disc would cause Hypnodisc to break down. There is also a chance that the ricochet problem could happen again, where it hits one of the robots, then the wall, and then breaks down. So yeah, at best guess, I would say 259 wins this one. And I guess even if 259 beat Terahertz, I feel like Terahertz would more likely come out on top anyway. So yeah, that's that sorted. So yeah, Bigger Brother would fight Terahertz and Tornado would fight 259. And naturally the Terahertz versus Bigger Brother fight would play out the same way. And yeah, I don't see 259 beating Tornado. But fair play to Adam Clark. This would be the best it's ever done in Robot Wars. He's ever done, rather. So then we'd have the same grand finalists, and that would play out the same way. Now another difference here is that Hydra would be seeded, and I imagine would be seeded over Ming Dynasty, I would think. So again, they'd swap places. In the 7th Wars, I mean, I'm not sure where Hydra would be seeded, but it would be quite high. And naturally, I don't see Ming beating Gravity. I'd imagine Gravity would flip it over and even out the arena. And as for Hydra, well, it would contend with Scraptosaur, Metalis, and Ceros. But yeah, I don't know whether or not Hydra would get through this fight. It would put up a decent fight. Well, actually it would, because it would be able to flip Scraptosaur over and it wouldn't be able to get back up. Might have a hard time with Saint Aggro though, I would think. So yes, Saint Aggro would probably beat Hydra, and then the 7th Wars plays out the same way. And yeah, that is basically what would happen if Warhog beat Napalm in Series 5. Warhog would go through to the Series semi-finals, defeating Wild Thing along the way, one of the top 10 best robots in Robot Wars throughout Series 5 and 6, but wouldn't get any further and would then still get eliminated in round 1. 259 would do a lot better than it did in the real timeline, even surviving Smithy, Terahertz, and even Hypnodisc. And Hydra would actually be in the semi-finals. Now let's backtrack to Smithy. I feel like even if Smithy did beat 259, I don't think it would beat Bigger Brother. I feel like it would lose to that, but still beat Hypnodisc and Hydra, get back in, and then get beaten by Tornado. So, although in that situation Smithy would be seated a lot higher, but again, nothing would change. I mean, Razor would still win Series 5, Tornado would still win Series 6, and Typhoon do Series 7. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching.